The stock brakes on my 2013 Audi S4 are fine. They're not the worst by any means. They use relatively large 345mm discs, and they have pretty large single piston calipers to go with it. Unfortunately, as I found out at the track day a couple of years ago now, anything over 100 miles an hour, there's a pretty serious vibration from, I think, the slide pins being a little, less than perfect, and so I'd like to switch to these. These are the brakes that I think Audi should have put on the S4 instead. They are 4-piston Brembo calipers that are made by Audi, or I suppose they're made by Brembo, but they are Audi parts. They have Audi badges stamped onto them because they come as standard on the Audi Q5 S line. You can even get them on the 2-litre TDI version. Unfortunately, they do use a slightly smaller 320mm disc, which does give a little less final braking power, but should give much better brake pedal feel, modularity or modulation control, and they're also way lighter, like in the order of multiple kilograms lighter. The brake pad surface is pretty much the same as well, but in theory these are actually easier to change out, as you just need to take those 2 pins out and then the pads come out of the top, and I think it's time to get them fitted. Now, the old calipers come off pretty easily. You just take the 2 bolts that hold the caliper bracket off. We'll need to disconnect the brake pad wear sensor. And in my case, I just used a 14mm flare nut wrench to crack the line loose and then spun the old caliper off. I stuck the new 320mm disc on and then bolt the caliper up. It's the same bolts, it's the same bolt pattern. You just screw in the old brake line in this case, give everything a clean, and then you can, in my case, I had to use 2 pry bars to push the pistons back in a little bit to put the new pads in, but then you slide the new pads in. You put the anti-rattle sort of clipper plate in, slide the pins in at the top or from the back. It's a bit of a fight to get especially the second pin in, but once you do, you'll want to hammer them until they're all the way seated, and then you want to bleed the brakes. These calipers have bleed nipples on both sides of the caliper, so make sure you do both. In my case, we're using the 2-man method, where you fill up the brake fluid reservoir and then crack the bleed nipple and have a sort of catch can on it, essentially. Of course, you will want to do that on both sides. It's the same process. Crack the main, I think, 21mm nuts off to get the brake caliper or the brake caliper bracket off, and then undo the brake line. In my case, I'm literally just spinning the caliper on the brake line, supporting both the line and the caliper to not stress the line. I'm leaving a bottle here to catch any extra brake fluid that falls out while we fit the new disc, give the old caliper a bit of a clean, and then basically reattach it, spin it on, put the new disc on, and put the bolts back in and tighten them back up. Now, unfortunately, this caliper, the driver's side or the right-hand side one, the inside bleed screw, well, it kind of snapped off. We did manage to get the system bled decently enough so that it was drivable. It wasn't too bad, but the brake pedal was still pretty mushy, and I'm fairly certain that there was a pocket of air just at the top there, which leads me to the unfortunate conclusion, which is I actually had to take these back off. Now later on, I suppose start of next year, I'm going to be replacing that bleed screw fully. I've got a tap set and drill set and all that sort of stuff. So I will have these back on the car relatively soon, so I can give you a proper estimation of how they feel. In the short time that I did have them in the car, they did feel pretty good, although, like I said, the brake pedal and the fact that there was still some air left in the caliper did mean that the brake feel wasn't quite right. The fact that these are so much lighter does mean that the unsprung mass is considerably less, which is great. Also, technically speaking, the slightly smaller brake disc means that it should accelerate slightly faster because there's less mass that you have to spin up, which is nice, although that does in theory mean that the sort of heat soak effect, especially for track braking, that sort of thing, might not be quite as good, but at the same time it is an aluminium caliper which dissipates heat better, so, well, we'll have to see once we get it all sorted out. In the time being, I'm happy to report that the price for all of this really isn't that much. The fact that I bought both of these calipers used means that I think I paid about 120 to 130 pounds per caliper, and then another 50 or so pounds for the brake pads, and another 100 or so pounds for 2 new slightly smaller brake discs. All in, that isn't all that much, considering this is a pretty healthy improvement for the brake feel and the unsprung mass, if nothing else. So, like I said, we'll have to see how it goes, but I'm very much looking forward to having these back of the car and working properly when I can get some new bleed screws fitted and get the old one out as the more specific one. But yeah, that's a little look at the replacement. I will do a full update video once they're back in the car and I've had a chance to use them and feel the difference, and we'll let you know. And yeah, that's pretty much it for actually this year of videos. I hope you've enjoyed the content thus far, and if you want to check out any more, there are plenty of more videos on the channel of slightly more successful mods and repairs and full car reviews if you fancy. If you want to stay up to date on these videos, hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification icon. And otherwise, have a great Christmas and New Year's if you're watching this when this goes up. If not, well, have a great week. I'll catch you in the next video.